Today's feast of Epiphany is a Greek word. Two words actually, epi and phyneo, meaning a shining upon. The star shone upon Israel, leading the three kings over mountain ranges and through river valleys to Bethlehem, shining upon a simple dwelling in that city, shining upon a child. Perhaps you've noticed during the repainting of the church, we fixed a lot of our lighting. Some of the light fixtures had gone out, so the light high above the main altar shines. It's called the Nativity spotlight, and we keep it on for the time of Christmastide, and so you can see the third joyful mystery above the altar is a little brighter than all the other four mysteries. The three kings were wise because they studied the heavens. They sought to discover the true essence of things, and they perceived when light was shining upon this or that. They searched for a light beyond human wisdom. They searched for a revelation. They were convinced that there is a fundamental order and meaning to the universe, and they discovered it in the heavens. And that is what the word epiphany means: a revelation, a revealing, a removing of the veil between heaven and earth. Heaven guides earth, and heaven is a little child who is Christ the Lord. Heaven is love. It is love it is the divine love of God that orders the universe. That's the goodness, truth, and beauty that the wise men discovered when they reached Bethlehem. The wise men followed the Christmas star, and they find Jesus all brightly shining under the star's beam. Now, his face in many paintings is radiating a light, an inner light. You can imagine the star, as you can imagine that spotlight high above the altar shining upon that little painted baby's face. The star is shining on him. The star is the revelation of the Father's love, which is Jesus Christ. They followed the star. King Herod, on the other hand, also saw that star. No one could miss it, shining above Bethlehem. But what did the star mean to Herod? Nothing. Herod didn't grasp its meaning because poor Herod was trapped in himself. He considered himself a rising star in the Roman Empire. He became governor of Galilee at age 25 to consolidate his position and his rise to power. Herod banished his first wife and their son. He sent hundreds of priests to their deaths, and finally murdered his second wife and their children. And of course, it is this Herod that killed all the baby boys in Bethlehem in a frantic attempt to maintain control. He spent his life seeking to be a star rather than to follow a star. And because of that fundamental mistake in Herod's life, he left a trail of blood, destruction, and anguish in the wake of his pitiful life. Herod looked down at himself, but the wise men looked up into the heavens, making their work and their study a prayer of praise to the maker of the stars. These wise men recognized the traces of God in all of creation. Herod recognized nothing of God in himself or in anything or anyone else. A stranger to himself, a monster to others, Herod lived a pitiable life. And so, there's only two ways in life, only two fundamental directions, either up or down. I can be a Herod, or I can be a wise man. I can choose to complain, to rant, to despair, or I can choose to thank God, to edify, to rejoice in the life that God has given me. This joy is not just the power of positive thinking. It's not just an American business tactic. This joy of looking up into the heavens for meaning in my life is what St. Teresa, the child Jesus, I'm glad to see her statue has made its way back to its accustomed place, by the way. St. Teresa has been in our parish, at least her statue, for about 60 years, maybe even longer. We had our anniversary, 125th, last year, and Father Lawrence Goody is about 80 years old, pastor of St. Francis of Assisi in Menlo Park. He preached our anniversary homily, and he said, boy, the church looks beautiful, but it's the same as it was. He looked over, Teresa's over there like she's always been there. It's good to see she's in her place, and some candles are burning in front of her statue. Well, that same Teresa wrote about prayer. Prayer for me is a fundamental looking up into heaven, a cry of recognition and of love, a surge of the heart, a cry of recognition and love. And that's what the wise men did in studying the heavens. An epiphany. They realized, they recognized the author of creation in that star. They recognized the maker of the stars and the stars themselves. And it was a prayer for them. They were converts. These three wise men from the East, from probably Zoroastrian religion or other non-Christian beliefs, they became Christians by looking deeply into the heavens. All of us in this new year are concerned about our nation and about our church and about our personal lives. Try not to worry. Try to look up and not down. When you're feeling down, look up. It's pretty simple. Everything in the scriptures today urges us to look up. First reading, rise up in splendor, Jerusalem, your light has come. Raise your eyes and look about, and you shall be radiant at what you see. Just before the last Mass, a young professional who had recently moved to San Francisco to take a lucrative job in her field, she came to San Francisco, the shining city on the bay. She asked me with a downcast look, what will happen to us this year? What will happen to our city this year? And I was inspired to say, I know what will happen this year. By God's grace. God's grace will overcome darkness and sin. That's what will happen this year. We must keep our heads up, our minds on things above, in order to find our way here below. We must keep our feet moving toward Christ, after the shining example of Balthazar, Melchior, and Gaspar, our three kings. Don't be a Herod, be a wise man. It's not complicated. Because no one wants to be a Herod. Not even Herod wants to be a Herod. No one wants to kill babies or their own wife and sons or live in fear. But unless we study the heavens like the Magi, we can fall into that self-absorption trap. We will sink with Herod into chaos. It is prayer that enlarges the heart and makes it capable of receiving the infinite God. So this new year of 2021, take the trouble to pray, to look up instead of down, to seek and to expect joy. Take the trouble to stop in a church and spend some time, or to stop at an open window and thank God for the sky and the sea and the land. To thank God for the people with whom you live. Look into the eyes of your family members and friends, even of that employer or employee that drives you crazy, and thank God. That is why our parish is preparing to consecrate ourselves to our guardian angels this year, taking 12 months to study the Word and saving works of God, looking up at the angels in order to be guided by them on earth to heaven. That is also why we focus on St. Joseph this year, the year of St. Joseph proclaimed by our Pope. Joseph, who guides us from heaven to Christ the Lord. Time given to studying the Word of God and preparing to serve Him will preserve us from doubt. Prayer and study will strengthen our faith in essential goodness and make of us all men and women of keen intelligence, peace, and joy. So this new year, perhaps you haven't made any New Year's resolutions yet. Maybe make a resolution to pray regularly. Holy hour once a week, daily Mass once a week, read the Scriptures every day, read the Catechism of the Catholic Church, read good stuff, study, and pray. Spend some regular time in peaceful and quiet prayer every week, every day if possible. And 2021 will be for us what it is already, a year of grace, a year of the Lord, 2021.